can, but at some point, if you look in there, in 2000, we adopted the street policy, and the first time we opened it was 15 years later, the way it looks. It was a long time. We've tweaked this in several times since, and it's, yeah, so already we're on 9 in 7 years. So what I hope to do with you guys is whether it's this policy or the next one, but we get to a final iteration where we can go forward as staff and know we're doing the alderman's work.
I got a couple questions. You know, as I'm chairman of the Sidewalk committee right now, the new chairman.
Right.
You know, and I know Prince went and talked to a few people out there, and we actually voted that night to not put sidewalks on North Mobile. If you read the letter, and I didn't even get a copy of the letter, or I didn't have a copy of the letter until after I was on the committee. And if you read the letter, you know, he went out and took that survey prior to the date that people were supposed to even reply if they had any concerns. You know, the letter reads that we were gonna give them till March or April 1st to reply whether they wanted a sidewalk, or if they had any concerns about having a sidewalk, or any complaints about having a sidewalk. You know, Jonathan came in that night, and Prince had went out that day and talked to, you know, he said 8 people. I don't even know which 8 people he talked to.
Talked to 9.
9, do we know who he talked to?
No, I know 8 of them said no, that was in your minutes. Talked to 9 out of 23, 8 said no.
You know, there's 21 people on that street, 21 different properties. 4 of them currently have sidewalks. So I'm wondering, what do we do with those? Do we repair those and bring them up to 88, like the policy says? 7 more out of the 21 have sidewalks either on St. Joe, North Street, or Grand Street, running in front of their houses. So, did he talk to those people? You know, I think I called you, Tom, and said I thought we jumped the gun when we made that vote. And I'm just wondering because if you read the letter, I'm not sure if people even know what they're getting, or what. If you read this letter and then read the newspaper, according to this letter, you're gonna get a new sidewalk. Are people out there thinking they're gonna get a new sidewalk, even though that night we voted not to?
And just so the new guys know, the Board of Aldermen did look at that letter before we sent it. It was massaged that night before it went out.
I didn't get to see it.
Yeah, I went back, I retyped it, I brought it back out.
You gave it to the committee members, you didn't give it to me.
Oh, maybe that's what.
That's what happened, you gave it to the committee members.
I never did see that letter.
Okay.
Here it is.
You want me to go make copies?
Nope, I'll read this here.
It's in your packet, I think.
Yeah, it's in here.
Yeah.
I've never read this here before, yeah.
But, you know, like I said, I don't know if, you know, unless you read the paper came out and said we weren't gonna put sidewalks on that street, I think, didn't it?
Mr. Daniel, do you remember?
I know it was well written, I just don't remember what it was.
Right, because I came up and talked to you about it.
You're right, you're right.
You
We
said
did
that
pass
he
it to the
came in
committee.
and talked to you, and you had told him that we voted not to put sidewalks.
Yeah.
You know, as chairman of the sidewalk committee, I think we ought to open it back up and possibly consider to at least find out what the people out there think.
Well, I can tell you the only written, so the letter says respond in writing, the only letter we've got in writing was Mr. Paulus,
John.
who spoke to the board. And I didn't bring this up to go back on this, but at some point, we gotta go forward. Maybe this is the time to fix it while we got the street not started yet, but then we go forward.
Back up a little bit, I was the one who came in and asked you to put some stuff together.
You
As
did
chairman of the
first.
sidewalk, before Brent told you to put the whole packet together.
Right.
Cause I wanted to give it to the ones that hadn't been updated or didn't know the details. So I wanted to make sure Dennis, being on the sidewalk committee, knew the progressive and what the policy was.
Right.
So,
Good point.
you know, I'd like to make a motion that we at least open it back up and consider it, because, you know, we got sidewalks up and down Grand Street, one block away, we got access from Drury to the soccer park. Through Moulton Street that's not built, the street was never built, so we built a sidewalk up to get up to Star Street from Drury. You know, it makes total sense to me to at least build sidewalks from Grand, which we got sidewalks up and down Grand all the way, from Grand to Drury. So people can go from Grand to Drury on the sidewalk to get to that sidewalk to go to the soccer park. Going to the next block up, between Grand and North. Yeah, Grand and North. There's sidewalks halfway up that block already on the west side. And then it's basically a vacant lot. So where it really makes sense to take that sidewalk up and finish that that block out. You know, I know sometimes we got a little bit of hang up, some of us got a hang up for putting a sidewalk, and then maybe nobody have a sidewalk, and then another sidewalk. But I'm afraid when we get this ADA plan, this transition plan that single regional planning's put together, you know, I think they're gonna want a lot of sidewalks where we don't have them already. And I think, you know, as long as we put in a few here or there, we're kind of meeting that plan when people want them. And that's what the residential sidewalk program does, is allows people to put sidewalks in where it may not be any, if they want it in front of their house. So.
I don't mind putting sidewalks in, I think we should. But if I want it, Doug doesn't, and Dave wants it, Clinton doesn't, to me, that ain't right.
You talking like the patchwork sidewalks?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
So you're basically saying if not 100% of the people want it, 90% of the people might want a sidewalk, but Doug doesn't.
Well, then
Then Doug-
he doesn't, okay, if it's something like that, my opinion is 90% of them want it on that street, he's the only one that doesn't. Say, well, Doug, this is what your neighbors want, this is what you're gonna get.
So are you saying 50% of the people then? So let's say six out of 10 want it, 4 don't.
It better be better than 50-50, I'm gonna say that. If
Well,
it's 50,
what if you only got 2 people on the block?
well, then I don't know what you do.
Because there's several spots on this stretch of street that have, it's you know, a 300-foot block, there's only 2 lots. And on the west side between Grand and North, half that block's done.
So you make somebody put a sidewalk in his yard? Or you
It would
don't?
actually be on our right of way.
Yeah.
In that
Yeah, I was
case,
gonna
we
say, if
have-
it's on a right of way, what are we asking them? Why are we asking? I don't understand.
Cause you're running into the same thing we ran into over there on North Parkview.
Parkview.
Remember all them people coming in here
Yeah.
telling how they were lied to? That's what we're, you know.
Well, I don't think we need to be lying to them like
No.
that was.
But, you know, it was the same policy there.
I think the policy changed.
It's changed
we have
since then.
changed it again.
You know, that night we voted against those sidewalks, and Dave, you agreed too that those houses are so tight against the
Well,
street.
Jonathan's is, and I have no problem with, you know, I totally agree with Jonathan when you only got a 10-foot front yard to give up 4 foot of your 10-foot front yard for a city sidewalk.
Well, 3 foot, what is it, a foot for the greenway and 3
2
foot
foot.
for that,
Probably 2 foot,
you know,
18 inches minimum, isn't it?
Yeah.
you know.
You know, and
And I don't know what's going in the greenway. I understand everybody says, well, that's your safety part for the kids.
Well, but it's bigger than that. It's where you put your electric
Utilities
poles,
and all
put your
that.
mailboxes. You remember we went through this
Yeah.
years ago. You gotta have a place for that kind of stuff.
What, can I ask, how do you prioritize what street is next that we look at sidewalks? I mean, how did we arrive?
at
We have a
Bolton,
street,
Because
street,
Bolton was the next worst street that needed to be
Yeah.
fixed. So the boards approved the capital improvement plan and said, we're fixing Bolton. Policy says when we fix the street, these are what we're gonna do with the sidewalks. So we didn't set out to do the sidewalks, we're doing the street because it's in
Right.
bad shape.
So the sidewalks are kind of a
Ancillary, complementary
Yeah.
to the street project, yeah. But there's times, you know, we fixed a sidewalk today or this week in front of St. Vincent's Church, because the alderman said there was settling, a lady fell, so we lift that one up, that's a little different, we fixed that one. We closed gaps on Grand, we closed gaps on Bruce, because we had the jack-o'-lantern look and we wanted to close those gaps, so the board has prioritized, the whole history's there, the board's prioritized filling gaps at one time, and so we've done that. We used to do that, staff, by ourselves, and we figured out we weren't the best people at installing those kind of deals, so we created a sidewalk program, which says we'll pay you up to $25 a linear foot to do a sidewalk, which is what we were called on last week, which is why I wanted to talk about this, because I'd like to let this guy go and do it because it's under the existing policy. If we change the policy later, but I don't want him to have to wait 6 or 8 weeks for us to do the same thing. Puts us in a weird spot.
We also talked, one of the journals, about how we voted, everybody agreed that we should look at the existing sidewalks we have now, bring them up to ADA compliance, fix the ones that you're talking about that are trip hazards, whatever, and that was voted on. My opinion is we need to see just how many sidewalks in town we got that aren't compliant before we start spending money on the new, on
We
new
should
ones.
have that in June.
Yeah.
We should have that.
I'd say it's more what you're gonna think.
Yeah, it's huge, it's gonna be huge, and we don't, it's important, I think, that the board understands that we're gonna get a list of sidewalks that are not ADA compliant by current standard, but it doesn't mean they have to be tomorrow. So all what we have to do is demonstrate a plan that we're gonna, $50,000 a year, $75,000 a year, I think is what we got in the budget, that we're gonna lop these off and we're gonna put them in order, and then that's sufficient. As I understand it from all these trainings, that's sufficient, we have a plan.
Is it,
But
To not have a plan
is
is
it
what
sufficient
gets you in
in
trouble.
making the sidewalks safe for people to walk on?
Well, you
You
know,
know?
and I think that's the debate, is a good sidewalk better than no sidewalk? Or is no sidewalk better than a good sidewalk? Not saying great ones. That's the stuff that I would love for us to make a decision and to have it to go forward. But in this case with Moulton, we're doing Moulton, do you want us to do the sidewalk? When we're there with the equipment, with the labor, with the whole area tore up.
and that's the policy right now.
That's the
That's the
policy.
policy right now.
But the policy allows for exceptions, so you guys made the exception or not.
So,
Did you read that fine print? The policy says we can make those exceptions for the good of the community.
Well, taxpayers' money's for the good of the community. We feel like that money could be spent somewhere else, doing another street or fixing the sidewalks that we've,
Then, if
Got
that was the
already.
case, then we shouldn't even send the letter out. Saying we were gonna do it.
do we have a right of way on Moulton?
On both sides, Brent? Okay, so as it stands right now, we would put sidewalks on both sides of both.
With the exceptions being, well, I understood for sure Jonathan Paul's, because he responded in writing saying he didn't want one. The board had indicated to Jonathan that he wouldn't get one.
Well, I believe that night we took a vote, a voice vote, and it wasn't a roll call vote, just a voice vote, and we voted not to put sidewalks
Anywhere.
anywhere.
That's the direction we're pursuing now, yes.
But at least we need to send a letter to all these people again saying we're not gonna do it, because we haven't did that either.
Yeah.
All we sent was a letter that they were supposed to respond to by April 1st.
How many responses? Just John?
You didn't have to respond if you were okay with it.
Yeah. Nobody.
The only reason they responded, the
No.
letter said
So
respond.
Jonathan was the only one that said no?
Jonathan did.
He's the only one that
In
went through
writing.
the
In
process.
writing.
In writing.
Yes.
In writing.
Right.
And honestly, what I wanted the thing in writing for was so in 10 years, when somebody else has bought that house, we can go back and say, look, the property owner at
Right.
the time said they didn't want a sidewalk, it wasn't the city messed up. You know, if we did 90% of them, I wanna be able to explain why we didn't do those other 10%. So that's why I started with in writing.
I think what Brent wants is, we've been a little back and forth with this.
Yeah.
That's understatement, right? And he wants us to have a clear direction, one way or another.
One way or the other.
Am I correct?
Yep.
That's the way I want it too, because if I'm in charge of the sidewalk committee, I wanna know what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know, am I supposed to follow the policy as it's written now, or are we gonna change the policy
next month.
Yeah, the big thing is, I got this application sitting there waiting. For me, I know Dave wanted the sidewalk guys to have it. I wanted to address this with the board, because as it's proposed, it would be a partial sidewalk on a street, it wouldn't be a complete street. He'd like to get his neighbors to do it. I just don't, if I let him go, I want you guys not to be mad we let him go under the existing policy.
What if we did one side?
You talking about on North Moulton?
Well, that's what, that was the goal, to get it at least on one side.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just looking for connectivity and walkability in the town, I understand two sides is ideal, but some of these streets that are older weren't designed with that in mind.
You know, and
So-
my favorite thing about one side is having to pick who gets the side. So if you don't want it and Kurt don't want it, and I'm gonna pick one of you, I'm automatically on somebody's naughty list.
Right.
I would,
Flip a coin.
I've changed my opinion on what we talked about, you've got somebody applying for a sidewalk. It's gonna look like Rob Street, but I've kind of rethought that, and if somebody wants a sidewalk, I say let them have a sidewalk.
Let him have it.
which is
There's
kinda
people
how-
that like sidewalks,
That's right, they're all,
Yeah, that's
and there's a
policy
lot of
right
people
now.
that don't
That's
like
policy.
sidewalks.
It's policy. Follow the
And there are a lot of people that don't like sidewalks.
that's where we're at right now, and that's why before I told Buddy, yeah, I wanted to make sure that's where we're at tomorrow too.
And as far as sending that letter out, I guarantee you, maybe I don't know, but I'll bet you that the majority of the people don't even read them. That's why I kinda like the door-to-door thing. Maybe Prince didn't do it properly, but at least he made contact with them and, know for sure what they're thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of those are rentals along there, I know that's rental property, I believe, it's by the names.
Yeah.
That's gonna be hard to do, but,
And,
You know-
and in that case, if you're knocking on the door, who gets to make the call? The guy that owns the property or the guy that's living there for the last 4 months?
well, I would think the owner would
That's
make.
what I
But
would
the
do,
owner's
so
not,
knocking
the
on
owner's
the
not
door.
there at the rental house.
Well,
The owner doesn't get the
we know
letter.
who they are,
No.
Yeah, the owner,
Yeah.
so, I mean, those are all challenges in this process, and we do the best we can by sending the letter to everybody. Whether people read the letter, that's, if I don't read a bill, I get a late charge, I can't fix that part. That's hard.
I have a motion on the floor
That's
from Dave to move some open North Moulton sidewalk back up for consideration. What's the motion?
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Open it back up.
Nay. Motion carries.
So let's talk about this so we understand. So we got into the sidewalk committee that is gonna make a decision and bring back a recommendation to the board again on if we're doing sidewalks or not, right?
But they're gonna do more than send out a letter, they're gonna
That's,
contact them.
Wait a minute, are you talking about North Moulton?
yes.
Okay.
I wanna close that out before but yeah, so that's, who's on the sidewalk committee by show of hands? Dave's committee, Doug,
Doug and Dennis.
and
Doug
Dennis.
and Dennis.
So, does the committee will either set their course or the board of aldermen will tell them the course to set, but
So they're going to make a recommendation to the board?
At the next meeting or what?
well, I don't know if you can
When does he need it?
turn it around that quick.
Yes, I would say, yeah, how quick you get it done.
Okay.
Because the design is.
Dave, do you and the committee think you can do that for the next meeting or not, Mr. House?
It depends what day we meet, cause I'm going out of town.
You can't do that, Dennis.
When I signed on, that was it, huh?
That was it, we open it now.
You didn't read the fine print.
Yeah.
No.
It's really tiny.
Alright, so we will leave that in the capable hands of the sidewalk committee. Regarding the existing policy, we as staff are free to apply the policy as you guys have approved it, and we will continue to apply it until you tell us otherwise.
And as chairman, I'm gonna hopefully my committee members agree with me that we're gonna use the policy as it's written out to kind of dictate where we pick and choose, or how we wanna pick and choose, or we're gonna use the policy to make a recommendation, put it that way. You know, and I totally believe that if somebody's adamantly against it, and it doesn't make sense, you know, let's say somebody's adamant against it and the other guy's gotten a sidewalk, and there's no real reason to be adamantly against it, cause it's basically a vacant lot, but it's gonna close a gap between Grand and North. I'm gonna make a recommendation that we put a sidewalk there. And as chairman, I'm gonna try to at least get a sidewalk on one side. It may not be the same side all the way up the street, but if you can walk to one block and go across and be back on the sidewalk going up the other side, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I agree with that, because some roads, like my street, a guy approached me about putting in sidewalks. And we have light poles right where the sidewalk would, we're gonna move all them
Same
light
way.
poles?
Go look at North Moulton Street.
Yeah.
Is it?
Well,
Look at
Same
everything that's
building.
gonna have to be moved over there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or you put it in the safety strip.
No,
Yeah,
it
put 'em in the
usually
safety
does
strip.
both.
Have you been down that street?
North Moulton?
Yeah. Go take a look at it.
Yeah. You know,
The thing is, the power poles are in our right of way.
Yeah, citizens, we don't pay for that.
We don't pay to move the power poles.
Citizens has to move them.
Oh.
Yeah, there's no cost. to it.
Like I said, we'll get together and
I think we all do.
I got paper, I got semi plans right here that'll show you where the sidewalks are. And we kinda get an idea of where we think they ought to go.
How long has this guy had his request for a sidewalk?
We got it last week.
Last
So
week,
I said I need, get me through this meeting, but I didn't wanna approve it under the policy, then the board said, no, this is a jack-o'-lantern deal, they didn't want me to do that, so I wanted you guys to know what I was doing. I'm hearing the policy applies, we're
Right
gonna
now,
move forward,
yes.
and you guys are gonna let us know about the other stuff.
Can I
Do
ask
we
a
need a
question?
motion on that, Trace, you're heading on, or what?
No, I don't think we need a motion for
Yeah,
us to use
because
our
it's
existing
already our
laws.
policy, right?
It's in the
It's
policy.
the law of the land,
I'm
right?
gonna write it down, so we got it.
So, my kid's daycare is back on trade winds, okay? Street was done, I'm gonna guess 2 years ago.
Yep.
Sidewalks were put in on both sides,
Yeah, all the way around.
except it stopped
Yeah.
at Bobby Ponders.
That's
That's
the
right.
reason for that.
What's the reason?
So we had right away to get him just a little bit further on one side of his house. We didn't have right away on the other side. So the sidewalk was gonna stop.
At
Either
the,
here,
at the intersection?
it was gonna stop. So we stopped it there to avoid the whole deal that would've happened otherwise. Cause what we have done in the past, as a group, we have a tendency, if one person says no, it has a tendency to sway the whole thing. So at the time, we went ahead, we did the sidewalk, the neighborhood was happy, he didn't get unhappy, and everything was done.
And that decision only affected him, basically.
We can't go any further than his yard anyway,
Right.
unless we get right away, because we don't own any right away.
Yeah, we don't have any right of way down, is that Breeze?
I believe so.
Every time we talk about sidewalks, we bring up Rob Street though.
Right,
Pretty
but
much.
in this case, we do not, like, Smith Street, we don't have anything on Smith Street, is that correct, Tim?
I think we probably, we may have to push this, may not have enough to put the grass strip in there, but it's probably enough to put a sidewalk in.
So would we ever put a sidewalk in Smith Street and cross the dry run branch and all
Say
that?
that's possibly, yeah. I mean, you know, the right of ways in town vary from street to street,
Yeah.
there's lots of, because the older parts of town are, you know, narrow right of ways, and so there's lots of variances across the entire town. It's just-
Okay.
It's,
But that's on down the road.
yeah.
Rick, I got one more question.
Yep.
The ADA plan, is that gonna also address where we don't have sidewalks and they are needed?
I think it's gonna show the gaps, isn't it?
I think it's designed, I have to look at what we set up, but I think it is designed to show the
Because
gaps.
isn't it supposed to be a comprehensive plan for the whole,
It's supposed to,
Sidewalks.
it's called an ADA transition plan, cause it's supposed to transition you from non-compliant sidewalks to ADA compliant sidewalks. I don't know what it does on a gap where there's no sidewalk, cause we've learned it's not required to be there. So I know for sure it's gonna show us where we don't meet the grade, the slope, there's damage, those kind of deals. I'm not sure how it's gonna play with the parts that are just gaps. Yeah.
So are we,
Yep.
closing the sidewalk discussion for now? Mr. House?
I'm fine.
Perfect.
Okay. I guess Brent, we will move on and you can tell, that gentleman to proceed, right?
Proceed.